जय जगदीश हरे, स्वामी जय जगदीश हरे, भक्त जनों के संकट क्षण में दूर करे. As the eternal song, deeply imprinted in the Indian spiritual psyche, started blaring over the loudspeakers, I went into a trance. The sounds, the smell, the bright lights, the guards, the history of the place, and the sea of people with folded hands singing in unison. It was a profound experience. As our boat came close to the Shashwamedha Ghat, the sun was setting on the Ganga River. We were on top of the deck and could get a 360-degree view of everything that was happening and about to happen. In the backdrop of the beautiful sunset, the lights on all the ghats suddenly came on, accentuating the visual feast the city is so famous for. The ancient city of Benares was getting ready for the famous Ganga Aarti. Our tour guide Madhav, who was barely 17 but had spent his entire life as a boatman on the Ganges, made a dramatic statement. Ladies and gentlemen, you are about to witness a poignant spiritual moment in one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in human history. Not knowing what to expect, we waited in anticipation. Scores of priests in dhoti and saffron colored kurta and women dressed in lovely Banarasi saris stood on specially erected stands. They started moving big lamps in precise choreography, while bells and drums created a spectacular auditory sensation. The rhythmic chanting of holy mantras by the priests was accompanied by blowing the conch shells to sanctify the atmosphere as they waved the incense sticks to worship Mother Ganga. Thousands of devotees, including foreign tourists, lined the ghat to get a better view of the Aarti spectacle. In the middle of all this, some devotees continued to take a dip in the holy water to wash away their sins, dropping diyas in the water. Their fervent devotion and attachment to this ancient temple city was writ large on their faces. Jignesh and I were lost in the intensity of the moment. But when it was all over, we went back to the sobering reality. We were there to perform a sad and important task. The next morning, we were up very early to meet the priests. We meandered through the city's famous narrow streets that gleamed with last night's rain. The alleys were already bustling with people who were jostling with bullocks and cows. Shop owners had started raising the shutters while slurping unimaginably sweet chai. Pilgrims were making their way to the holy river to take a dip at the auspicious moment of sunrise. Panditji's home was very old, like the rest of the city, with photos of various Hindu gods adorning its walls. We met an aging, short, and generously built man with his hair tied into thin ponytail. After exchanging pleasantries, Panditji started explaining what needed to be done. I said, Panditji, my friend Jayant suffered a lot before his death due to depression. His wife has asked for special prayers that can liberate his soul from the pain he suffered on earth. Panditji nodded his head and said, Krishnaji, I understand. First, since Jayanji was a Brahmin and crossed the seas to go abroad against our beliefs, we need to do Shraddha Karma, a purification ceremony. As far as suffering is concerned, as you know, we believe in reincarnation. The soul leaves the present body and simply takes up a new life, just like we discard old clothes and wear new ones. His suffering was simply a result of his karma in the last life. Since he was a good man in this life, you can be sure that his next life will be full of joy. You will see the proof yourself today when we offer Pindadana to crows at the end of the ceremony. If the crows eat the rice as soon as we offer it, you can be sure that Jayantaji's soul has passed away peacefully. We fervently hoped for this to happen and followed Panditji to Manikarnika Ghat. Several families had already gathered on the banks of the river. We looked around in amazement. Women were drying the colorful saris on the ghats while children played around. A marriage ceremony was underway, with the bride and the bridegroom fully decked out as they dutifully followed the priest's instructions. There were also cattle being bathed and street dogs seeking food. Pilgrims took a dip in the holy water and prayed to the sun god and Ganga Mata. Some sadhus were in deep meditation, while others with fanciful facial and body decorations posed for photographs to the delight of foreign tourists. As we reached Manikarnika Ghat, bodies were being brought for public cremation. The smoke from the burning funeral pyres was overwhelming. Ashes and flowers from previous cremations had already started flooding the waves. The ghats were at once full of sounds and smells of life and the silence and order of death. It was as if Varanasi was saying an enthusiastic hello to life and a friendly goodbye to death without being afraid. Jignesh seemed to be completely out of his comfort zone, especially when asked by Panditji to wear a dhoti and put a sacred thread over his right shoulder. Panditji started the ceremony by invoking the gods Vishnu, Brahma, Rudra, and Yama. Jignesh followed every one of the priest's instructions translated by myself and started performing the rituals with full devotion while making sure the dhoti was tied tightly round his waist. Toward the end of the Shraddha ceremony, Panditji asked Jignesh to offer four pinda or rice balls, three of them representing three generations of forefathers and the one representing the deceased. He was then asked to press all the rice balls together to make one large ball to signify the meeting of the departed soul with his forefathers. The pinda was then offered to the crows, the messengers of the Lord of Death, Yama. We eagerly waited for them to come. Unfortunately, none arrived for quite some time. That worried us, but we waited patiently. After some time, Panditji said, Jignesh Beta, something is worrying your father. Do you know what worried him the most? Jignesh hesitated, but then said, well, he used to worry a lot about what would happen to my mother if he passed away before her. Panditji asked Jignesh to offer special prayers and promised his father that he would take care of his mother no matter what. Jignesh made the promise with folded hands and tears in his eyes. Within seconds, crows had pounced on the pinda and started eating it. I could not believe my eyes. Jignesh wept like a child as I placed my hand on his shoulders to comfort him. After the Shraddha ceremony, we walked toward the Ganga river with a renewed sense of hope. Jignesh strode carefully into the water, holding the urn containing his father's ashes over his head. As the ashes merged into the flowing Ganga, Jayant was once again reunited with his motherland. Watching the ashes reminded me of the fragility of human life. The somber mood inevitably raised the existential question: what is the meaning of life? Why are we here? I also looked for answer to the question: what did Jayant and I achieve by leaving our homeland on our own volition and coming to Australia? When a tree gets uprooted and is replanted in a different soil, what determines whether it thrives or wilts, and how it redefines and reconciles its relationship with the new soil? Jayant and I kept seeking answers to the questions: where is my home? And whether being in a golden cage with material comforts was worth the migratory efforts and the attendant sacrifices. Trishanku, a mythological character caught between two worlds, not knowing which one to choose, aptly reflected our dilemma by symbolizing a big question mark as to whether we had truly arrived or got hopelessly lost. Suddenly, Jignesh turned to me and said, Uncle, I want to officially change my name to Jack. Now, I want to retain my original name. I patted Jignesh's shoulder and said, that's great, beta. By all means, be a proud Aussie, but don't forget where you come from. During the long flight back home, for the first time in 2 weeks, I slept soundly as my memories drifted back from the pressures of the past.